Hello, everybody. This is the very first episode of Movie Mayhem with Spanky and G. And I'm Spanky.
I am G.
Alright, so the point of this podcast is pretty much we watch movies and then we talk about them.
Yeah, we basically review the good, bad, and the ugly in the cinema world.
So no movie is off bounds or untouchable by us because we frankly don't care.
Exactly. And have nothing better to do than to watch movies.
So, one thing we always like to welcome from our listeners is that they give us suggestions on what type of movies we watch.
No matter how old, how recent, we can definitely probably get our hands on it somehow.
And before we get started with this first episode, we'd like to give a shout out to one spectacular place in general, which is Chucky's Playground, which is a Chucky fan community where a bunch of us get together and we talk about stupid crap and, just shoot the shit on Chucky and Chucky-related stuff, as well as other stuff, and there's a lot of neat people there.
Yeah, it's basically a pretty cool hangout that we both spend a lot of time on, so yeah, definitely check it out, and you're always welcome.
Yep, always welcome. We'll put a link in the description to this site. There's lots of cool things that happen on it, including one thing we always encourage is writing fanfics. It's a big thing of what people like to do, and we have numerous members on the site that love writing fanfics.
Just not, fanfics is a huge part of our contributions, but anything that, people like to create, we always love to watch. We have some members that make some pretty cool collab videos and stuff like that, so those are always fun to watch, too.
And you can reach Chucky's Playground on almost any social media platform, including Facebook, Twitter. I think we have a Tumblr. One of our members is running an Instagram page for us because he's constantly making neat little caption pictures, which is very awesome. And special thanks to you, Chucky115 Awesome, for doing that for us. You're going above and beyond, and we appreciate that.
Yeah.
And one notable thing I want to throw out is with our fanfics and whatnot, one of our own members on the site, Smangry, as we like to call him, we don't know how to pronounce his name.
So sorry if that's incorrect, but it's what makes most sense.
And he wrote a fanfic that continues on from Curse of Chucky, and he actually got Fiona Dourif to read it.
Yeah, so that's huge for us.
Yeah.
And for him too, so.
And it's really awesome. It's a pretty lengthy read, but it's well worth it. He's working on the second installment right now. And just give it a read. It's well worth your time. You won't regret it. You're going to enjoy it. It's very well written.
Mm-hmm.
And another quick shout out we want to give, since G and myself are proud members of the Ribcage Nation.
The Ribcage Nation, hashtag that.
Hashtag that
Get it
whenever
trending.
you tweet. And, we're part of the Metal Army. Metal Matt's podcast. He is a fellow member on the Playground. He writes a lot of fanfics, and he's made a lot of backstories for all of us.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome and all very, very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we love Metal Matt, and he has this amazing podcast that he always is updating and making new episodes for. So,
and his varies between various music and movies. Recently, he did, I believe, the Leprechaun series. He wasn't planning on watching the last 3 or 4, but I told him he had to, so he did it. So I apologize, Metal Matt, if you lost significant amount of your time by watching those. But anyway, we're going to hop right on to our first movie for Movie Mayhem, which is often a movie I like because there's a lot of ties to the Child's Play series. It's called Pinocchio's Revenge. It's, one of those lesser-known horror movies.
yeah.
It's from 1996.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I always remember is the poster of it, which, I'll be posting images throughout the video. That's what grabbed my attention when I first saw this in, Blockbuster on VHS. I just had to watch it because it stood out to me. And I always had a thing about, killer toys.
You know how
dolls.
significant this story is if Blockbuster is still open.
Exactly. So, now there are a lot of, similarities between this and Chucky. One of the key things, one of the first ideas thrown out there for the Child's Play series was the first movie was they were considering making it seem like Andy was doing all the bad things. He was because you see a lot of point of view stuff, and you're supposed to think, oh, maybe that's Andy.
Yeah.
So Pinocchio's Revenge, a quick, synopsis on the beginning of it. There's a mom, and she's a defense attorney, and she's a single mom. She has a boyfriend, and she has a little daughter whose birthday's coming up. And
sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yep, just like Chucky. And that's kind of the focus of the story, but it opens up with murderer or convicted murderer Vincent Gatto. He's burying his son and his son's favorite toy, a Pinocchio doll.
Which that wasn't mine when I was 7, but
yeah. And so the mom in this movie, her name is Jennifer. Mm-hmm. She is the defense attorney for Vincent Gatto and is trying to proclaim his innocence because she doesn't believe he can do all these horrible things. And one piece of the evidence is the Pinocchio doll. So, cut to the daughter's birthday. The daughter's name is Zoe. And mistakenly, Jennifer's boyfriend David thinks that the Pinocchio doll in the back seat of her car is for Zoe.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of creepy. And so Zoe kind of, likes it. And
immediately.
Immediately. She loves it.
Freaking puppet.
And it's kind of messed up because it's evidence in a murder investigation.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I have to add. Okay, so why was Jennifer so okay with even letting her daughter touch that for the few days that they were originally supposed to have it for?
And one of the eerie things that's covered later in the movie is that Jennifer doesn't recall taking the puppet to her car, nor the guy who gave her the evidence in her office doesn't recall taking it to her car. So you're supposed to believe that the doll got up and got in the car.
Mm-hmm.
So...
But they don't show that, so it's kind of up in the air. And
that is one really good thing about this movie is it really does carry out the idea, one of the ideas for Child's Play, where it could be the kid doing it or the parent or whatever. It really blurs the lines so you're not sure and you're guessing the entire time.
Yeah.
Even during some scenes where it may seem obvious.
Because Zoe and Pinocchio are so... they're always together. I think there's maybe one scene where they're not.
Yeah. I mean, the only scenes where the Pinocchio doll is not with Zoe is in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, the backstory is Vincent Gatto, he confesses to all these murders. The defense attorney, Jennifer, doesn't believe that he did them, but he gets zapped in the chair, he's dead. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
But, so then back to Zoe's birthday party, they're having fun. And then one of the most disturbing scenes in this movie takes place. It's just very odd and eerie, and, I've heard other people say how odd and eerie, Jennifer's really thankful because her boyfriend David put on this party and did everything.
And so she wants to thank him.
Yeah, which he claims he's going to collect later. Oh. And so everyone left. Zoe's in bed. Pinocchio's just sitting there all dopey. Sitting there on the ledge, just staring. And David and Jennifer are sitting there by the fire.
And cue the horrible music.
Yep, the horrible romance music.
Horrible, music that starts playing.
It gets a little, slow-mo. It gets close-ups of the hands digging in each other's backs. It does double takes.
Yeah, I was going to say, it double took Jennifer's chest on top of...
It's a great chest, by the way. I'm not going to lie.
Up.
That is no way she is a mother. But
Spanky talked about her chest for the entire hour and a half this movie played.
I know what I like. And, yeah, it does that. And, the mom, Jennifer's just getting railed by David on the bed. And just over and over. And you can hear her moaning and whatever. And it cuts over to Zoe's room.
Who's so awake.
Yeah, it does the scene where it starts out at the top of her ceiling above her bed and works its way down. And she's just laying there, just staring up at the ceiling as you can hear the mom. Yeah. You can just hear,
And she's just staring so contently, and then she just looks over at Pinocchio, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, and luckily it doesn't go downhill from there, but, like, she just goes over and hugs him because she's lonely. And, you know, another minor character in this movie is Sophia. She is an Italian immigrant.
Live-in
nanny. And so the next scene that goes in is there's a nice shower scene.
Oh my god.
Where Sophia's just in there sudsing up and cuts over and Pinocchio's sitting there on the bed taking a gander.
But Sophia, I think, likes it because she goes over and starts stroking
the doll.
His face. Yeah. And then Zoe comes in all pissy and she's like, what are you doing?
And of course, when the mom asks and whatnot, it's like, oh, we could hear you and David last night. It's like,
and then that just wiped away everything. Like, oh, so yeah.
Awkward. It's like,
you got me.
Explain to your daughter why you were getting plowed last night and you were loud enough for her to hear. Like, good parenting. And, you know, there's more shenanigans that continue on where bad things are starting to happen. Like, she starts taking this Pinocchio doll to school, just like Andy Barkley did in the Chucky series. Mm-hmm. And there's a bully at the school. I don't remember her name. Oh, ugly kid.
Yeah, she's hideous.
Ugly, freckled face, evil grin. Bully, and she takes the Pinocchio doll and chucks it over the fence, like, effortlessly. And Zoe goes around looking for it, and she sees Pinocchio laying on the ground with a rake. And then the bully starts riding her bike, and all of a sudden, the rake gets shot out right into the spokes of the bike.
And falls right in the view of a freaking school bus. But it's okay. She lives, like almost everybody.
She doesn't, like, die or anything. Like, we were expecting some splat.
Oh, yeah, I was expecting her brains on the
pavement.
But,
like, she's just all dirty. Like, she rolled around in dirt, so... But that's, like, the first of his shenanigans Pinocchio starts. And this is, like, one of the first, like, you never know because you don't see Pinocchio really move the rake. Her and Zoe are right there in the same area. You just see, like, the handle of the rake shoot out. Mm-hmm. And so then, you know, more shenanigans go on where... I'm trying to think some other ones.
Well, I mean, like, just little things. Like, there was this freaking killer whale that threw me off at first because the killer whale's name is Walter.
Yep.
And when Sophia was tucking Zoe in or whatever, and she's like, well, maybe Walter will want to sleep with you. And I'm like, wait, whoa, who's Walter?
Yeah,
and it was a whale.
Because Zoe's a very imaginative person. She has a lot of these stuffed animals that she talks to. And so she usually sleeps with a stuffed animal in the night. And, like, one day Sophia finds Walter thrown in the trash, and it's Pinocchio that did it. Another thing is, the reason Pinocchio was given to Zoe, it was a temporary gift because...
The doll wasn't at the toy store for her mother to pick up.
Yeah, and eventually it does show up, and, like, the mom pulls it out of the box, and Zoe's not impressed at all.
She's like, yeah.
Yeah, she's like, what is this piece of shit? And, pretty much, and... So she doesn't give a crap about it. She's like, I want Pinocchio. She starts getting very attached to this doll.
Yeah.
And
Stage 5 clinger.
Definitely. And one day, the mom is walking through the house and she sees the leg of the doll sticking out.
Lifeless, dead doll body underneath the bed.
And she gets a little curious, and she goes up and she pulls the leg out. And what does she find, G?
Her Betty doll's lifeless, dead body. Looks like Pinocchio mauled the hell out of
There's like a hole bashed in the middle. The face is bashed in. And once again, everyone thinks the child did this. Zoe did it. But Zoe swears Pinocchio did it. But you never see, so you never know. Mm-hmm. And some more stuff continues, like small stuff like that. And then it kind of starts getting serious where... One thing Zoe has a problem with is, like, her parents are divorced, so she has, like, abandonment issues or thinking that her mom's not going to be there.
She has some real daddy issues.
Yeah,
she won't talk with her father.
She won't talk with her father. She thinks her mom's going to be taken away from her by David, the boyfriend. And one night, David's babysitting. And this is, like, the first scene where Pinocchio actually talks. But here's one of the bad things. It's very inconsistent whenever Pinocchio does something. In this scene, he might move his eyes, but his mouth doesn't move, but you hear a voice talk.
Yeah.
And this is where things start getting a little more evil. He says he could take care of David.
Yeah.
And cue the scene now where Zoe's walking around the house looking for Pinocchio and saying he went into the basement. And David's like, I'll get him. And so he goes down in the basement, which is kind of another scene that's like straight out of Child's Play, too.
Yeah, I was going to say an homage to Child's Play, too.
Where Phil goes down and sees Andy and Chucky struggling down there. And so David goes down and into the basement, doesn't find anything. The light shuts off. He goes upstairs, and what happens to him, G?
He goes to, when he goes downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he goes upstairs, he's like, oh, very funny. Because the lights go off, so he's running up the stairs, and then there goes the door, right dead center in David's face, and he falls down, like, falls through, like, 3 things, and they just break.
Like, through handrails and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then he just hits the ground, and it zooms out.
And his head is bleeding.
And so, he goes to the hospital, and that's where the mom, Jennifer, shows up, and she explains, and Zoe called the cops and pretty much saved his life.
Yeah. And that's when Zoe found... That's, like, very much how, like, when Andy's like, okay, Chucky is bad. Zoe's like, Pinocchio is an asshole.
Yeah, pretty much. He's a dick. And so then it cuts back. Oh, yeah, one of the side notes is there's nobody really significant actor or actress-wise in this movie. The most notable person is actually the stunt double for Pinocchio. It's Vern Troyer.
Can you say Mini-Me?
Mini-Me. And it's pretty obvious when the stunt double is used. But, which is coming up in this next scene we're going to talk about. But, so it's David's in the hospital on life support, stable condition, and it's back where Pinocchio and Zoe are sitting in the room and they're talking. And he's still not moving his mouth, I don't believe. And it's very... They tie in a lot to the story of Pinocchio, like the Disney story or the old Italian version where Pinocchio's evil. And what does he call Zoe? The Blue Fairy?
The Blue Fairy, the one who gives him a conscience and makes, like, to try and get him on the right track.
And he's kind of, like, manipulates her and says that Zoe can set him free so he can go talk to David
by
in the hospital.
cutting his strings.
Yeah, because he's an actual puppet. He has the little things with the strings that move, and he says he's going to go talk to David. And then that's where some of the movement gets a little ridiculous.
Yeah. That's where you could really tell when Vern Troyer was used.
Because he just kind of starts running away.
I'm free!
I'm free! I'm free! Let's go see David! And he just bolts out the door, and Zoe's running after him. And
this next thing we're talking about, sorry to interrupt you, but with the motorcycles, if you can remember what
movie this is from,
please let us know.
Because it cuts to Zoe chasing after Pinocchio. He can't keep up, or she can't keep up, and she wanders in the middle of the street, and all of a sudden you see 2 headlights coming at her. You're like, oh shit.
She doesn't do anything though. She just kind of stares at him.
She stands there all dumb, and all of a sudden, I swear I've seen it in other movies. The headlights come closer, and it turns out it's 2 motorcycles, and they go around her.
Yeah.
So if anyone knows what that is, it's been bugging G and myself for the last day trying to figure this out.
So please let us know, because it's driving me nuts.
So from there, Zoe can't keep up. She goes back home. And then it cuts to the hospital. Mm-hmm. And that gets a little ridiculous, too. Because it does from this point of view shot of Pinocchio supposedly walking. And how people don't notice him is ridiculous.
Yeah, considering, like, there was a nurse who pretty well almost made eye contact at one point. Like,
and there's some homeless-looking Hagrid dude in a wheelchair staring at him, and then there's a man in pink scrubs, a male nurse. This is very degrading.
Very degrading to that profession. Yeah.
and so he finds David's room, and I wouldn't say he talks to him.
He thinks to him.
Not even. What does he do to him, G?
Like, he doesn't talk to him.
No, not at all. He just goes up there, sees that he's on life support,
and then just unplugs it.
Pulls the plug.
And then he goes insane, like, instantly.
And the part that was really weird about this is, like, David's restrained in his bed, but it's not like...
he wasn't, like, a danger to himself when he was a vegetable.
He can't help himself because he's restrained and he's dying. And then the other part is, like, all these alarms are going off and no one's running in.
And no, because I know if this were real time, then that would be happening, but not in a B movie.
Well, maybe he didn't have insurance, so they didn't give a shit. But, so that, then, technically, Pinocchio's first kill.
Yeah.
And
we're late in the movie at this point. Like, it took a long time.
This movie does a lot of build-up, and then it escalates really quickly. Like, when we were first watching this, G was amazed when I told her there's only 5 minutes left at the final scene. It really jumped up there.
Yeah.
And one of the things Zoe does is she finds a cricket to, like, Jiminy Cricket.
Because, so she finds that cricket, and then, because she wanted to give Pinocchio consciousness, and that's where Sophia talks about the Italian tale, how Pinocchio would have really bad temper tantrums, and then in the old story, he squashed the cricket in one of his temper tantrums. And so, yeah.
And so Zoe's staying home from school because David just died. You know, they got the phone call, it's all sad. Sophia's staying with her, and she remembers that about the conscience. And then she goes to check the cricket in the box.
And it is just goo. And she gives out this gut-wrenching scream.
Yep, and it's a funny scene because the way she asked Sophia to get her some juice, and she was so bitchy about it.
I know. Can I have some juice?
Yeah. And she remembers to go check the conscience, and then Sophia's like
drinking the juice she was gonna give her.
She's like, screw that, this is my juice. And then when Zoe lets out the scream, it does the slow-mo glass of juice dropping to the floor and shattering.
Zoe!
And now Zoe's nowhere to be seen. As Sophia's wandering through the house, I wonder what's gonna happen. You know, she's wandering through this house, looking around, and then out of nowhere.
Homage to Child's Play.
The first one.
Yeah, the first one, where you get the point of view shot in the kitchen of Pinocchio, and then he grabs the knife off the counter, and then you get that little glare of a knife there.
But that's one of the later scenes.
No, I thought...
That's with the mom.
Shit, sorry.
That's fine, but this part is where... that actually was an earlier scene where Pinocchio was looking around.
There's a lot of homages.
Yeah, so. And he grabs a knife, and this is another scene that really blurs the lines for you to make you seem like the mom's also insane, where she wakes up and she sees Pinocchio holding a knife. Like, just the outline, the shadow of him. She doesn't see, like, the face or anything. And then it's like a lightning flash, and then it's Zoe holding the knife crying or something. And all that. But, so it's still toying with you, making you think it's Zoe doing this, and the mom's just an idiot. And then, so we cut back to Sophia wandering through the house, and out of nowhere, she gets her leg taken out by a fire poker.
Yep.
Just whack. And, and then she just gets beaten. Kind of like when in Child's Play 2 when Mrs. Kettlewell gets beaten with the yardstick.
Yeah.
There's some screaming, and it does kind of copy the scene where you see the poker go up, like the yardstick, and then down.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of a goof in there as a thumbnail showing.
Yeah, I don't think it means anything. It was just something you see on the IMDb page, but when you see the poker go up, you can see a thumbnail like someone's holding it. Now, I don't think that's supposed to indicate...
Yeah, I don't think it's supposed to indicate anything. But it almost like, I will get there, but it could. Like, it could.
But it's just very unknown. But she gets just beat to shit with a fire poker, and she's done.
Yeah,
you know?
done.
Yeah, she was bad maid anyway.
Oh my god. Moving on from Sophia.
So then the mom
gets home.
Well, also one of the things we should probably throw in there is that throughout this movie, for some reason, Jennifer is going to this church to talk to this priest about stuff.
No, she's not religious.
At all, and they make a little joke because she's like, I'm not even a Catholic.
And he's like, well, that's okay, because this is Episcopalian. And she's like, oh.
And he's like, that's like Catholic light. And then she's having all these like in-depth conversations about how she doesn't believe Vincent Gatto was this killer, how all the death scenes, all the kids were hit with a blunt object.
Because Jennifer was Vincent Gatto's defense attorney. I don't know if we said that.
Yeah, and how the son was strangled, and it's like, I think the DA or something like that mentioned like, well, maybe the son found out and he had to get rid of him quick. And then it comes to Jennifer's mind while she's talking to the priest that maybe Vincent Gatto wasn't the killer. That maybe it was the little boy who was doing the killing, and Vincent Gatto, the father, had to stop him.
Exactly.
And that makes, Jennifer run home. And there's also another wacky scene we forgot to mention is Zoe sees a psychologist during the movie.
Yeah.
To deal with...
Everything.
And there's a scene where she has Pinocchio in there. And it's kind of like the scene from the first Chucky where he's in the police office and he's telling Chucky to move and talk, but he won't. But in this one, it's a little different where the doctor has a phone call and has to leave for a couple minutes. And then Zoe is chastising and getting mad at Pinocchio.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see his mouth move when he talks. So it gets really inconsistent again. And he's saying, I could just blame everything on you, that you did it. They go, nobody's seen me do anything and all this. And she's screaming at it, telling him to shut up. And of course, he's not moving or doing anything while Zoe is yelling at him to shut up.
But his mouth is moving at this point.
Yeah.
Very terribly.
And... so that's when the doctor comes back in and is like, oh shit, this little girl's crazy. And later, that's when the doctor records his video sessions for any discrepancies, whatever, so he can go in more depth with his patients and help them. And he sees this altercation between Zoe and Pinocchio. And this is where it get kind of supports the fact that Zoe just may be batshit insane because Pinocchio doesn't move talk at all. It's just Zoe's part of the conversation. There is no Pinocchio talking or saying anything. So, and of course the mom's like, my daughter's not crazy.
Of course.
And she like threatens the doctor. Like the doctor was saying like,
that he
wants to have her committed.
If she doesn't commit, then they're going to have to contact the authorities.
And then she threatens to have his license stripped. So
I'll use all of my legal resources to have your license removed.
And so they're kind of at a standstill. And then that's kind of when the Jennifer goes home, and it's like kind of like that. It's like that stormy night, but there's no rain, like in horror movies, where it's just thunder, dry thunder.
Well, rain gives bad camera lights, so no rain.
So she goes home, and I think there's only the fireplace is like the only light in the house.
Of course it is.
And Zoe's nowhere to be seen, I don't believe.
And this is when Jennifer goes to the kitchen and does the same thing. Yeah,
she goes and... which kind of adds to the thing, is she crazy? She reaches in the drawer and grabs a knife. And then she does like, what the hell am I thinking? And then I believe, because it's the point the doctor made later, but out of nowhere, bam, she gets hit right in the head with a fire poker.
Yeah.
And so she's kind of woozy, dazed, confused, dizzy. And then what she does is... she turns around and Zoe's holding the poker.
Mm-hmm.
But she's like, I took it from Pinocchio, he can't hurt you. And,
we have to run away!
And it's just really odd. So it's like, who do you believe at this point? And
exactly, yeah.
So then it cuts to this scene where, like, Pinocchio's just standing still from a side view on the end of the couch. And then he just starts slowly walking. Like, it's a prop at this point. I don't think it's Vern Troyer.
No.
And it's just...
Yeah, it made the weirdest noise.
And then he turned. And then... See, G was cracking up because I kept making noises.
The whole movie, and I'm like, what the hell is he doing?
Every time he saw Pinocchio...
He'd just be like...
and then, lo and behold, he does it. He raises the knife.
So that's what that was for.
And moves his mouth. He's full out now. There's no hiding anything. He's moving, talking, screaming. And he's chasing her with the knife. And she stumbles over Sophia's dead body. Once again, where the hell is Zoe? Like, there was a scene where she ran through the hallway, but, like, the mom tried to grab her, but she ran away. And so pretty much, I believe she runs into Zoe's room, like...
Yeah, she runs into, like, a room of some sort.
And it kind of takes... Well, this is a pretty typical scene in a lot of horror movies.
Ever since The Shining, yeah.
But there's no axe, but it's they did it in Child's Play as well, where she's holding this door shut.
Let me in.
Let me in, let me in. And he's stabbing it. And this is another goof in the movie you can see is the lines on the door. That door was made, like, out of cardboard.
Yeah.
And all this, and it just kind of escalates. There's more terror and mayhem. Zoe's nowhere to be seen. More chasing going on, stuff like that. The mom gets, like, stabbed in the hand through the door. She's remarkably calm about it, too. For how big that knife was, that shit would hurt.
Yeah, maybe she was in shock. That's the only defense I can give.
Judging by the size of that the knife, it was as wide as her hand.
Yeah.
Like, that's how big that was. It would have really messed her up. And so, yeah, there's just some more of the generic struggle with the doll on her flailing and whatnot. He's not a biter like Chucky.
No.
He's just saying the same stuff. Let me in! And eventually, he runs away.
Yeah.
And then she wanders back into the living room. Out of nowhere, he jumps on her again, and he's struggling.
And she's trying, obviously, to get him off, and this is the point where she throws him.
Yeah, she just...
in the glass table.
She just chucks him across the room, and he goes through his glass table.
And his goofy foot flies off.
Yeah, you see his wooden foot, his Dutch shoe fall off. And it just... But then it cuts back to Jennifer. She's all, like, panting, scared and shit. And this is where it takes kind of the twist.
Yeah.
It cuts back. It goes to this broken glass table where you think she threw Pinocchio. But in reality...
It was Zoe.
Zoe's laying there all broken ass through the table. Glass shattered. And it just really puts a cap on it, like... Was this Zoe the whole time? Are they both batshit crazy? Because, as I said, every scene where Pinocchio is doing something where you think he's alive, there's Zoe around.
Yeah.
And so then, after this, it cuts to Zoe's pretty much catatonic because she's all hopped up on drugs and shit in a big padded room. And the mom's hugging her. And there's the doctor. He's got her committed. And it kind of does one of those where it explains things.
Yeah.
And really adds to this blurred reality who did it. Where the mom's like, I saw him move. He did this. He hit me.
And he was like, was it before or after you were bludgeoned in the head with a fire poker?
And he says, you suffered a severe concussion. So it kind of like takes a cop-out with some medical explanation, but it fits really well.
It does.
Because it really, as I said, one of the things I really like about this movie is it really blurs the line, and you don't know for sure. Like, if you read the Wikipedia page, it's going to say one thing, but just watching it, you can make arguments for both, and you can almost make a stronger argument that it is Zoe doing this.
Yeah, and I mean, I gotta, while you were talking, Spanky, I was thinking, like, before she even received Pinocchio, you kind of had like a bit of a nudge that she was crazy, because there was the one scene with the bully where she bit her ear.
Yeah,
so she had the violent tendencies.
Yeah, the bully like dropped her birthday invites in the mud, and Zoe just went crazy and tackled her and Mike Tyson her ear, and like it was just like that. Like so they definitely,
and maybe Pinocchio was just that like psychological factor.
So they set it up very well because the daughter Zoe had her issues, and like the movie breaks out, cutaway where the doctor's like, well, whatever, he says his normal stuff, and Zoe's, committed. She's in there, and there's no sequels or anything. There's nothing else after it. It just ends like that, and there's no definite saying, was this Pinocchio? Was this Zoe?
And I honestly feel that, like, throughout the whole movie until that point, I thought that the audience could safely assume that it was Pinocchio. But I think that, honestly, the only reason why I thought that was because I've seen Chucky many, many times.
Exactly. Like, it's because, you've seen a lot of these movies where there's these killer toys and whatnot. You're going to think, oh, it's the damn doll.
Obviously the fucking doll.
But, like... So it was just very interesting. That was probably one of the high notes of this movie. Like, it's not like the best movie. It's not that good.
Honestly, the twist and the way that they made it, in the sense that, like, yeah, Zoe and Pinocchio were together the whole time, was probably the only positive factor I could give this movie.
Also the acting.
The acting was not nearly as terrible as I thought.
It was a bunch of nobodies, which also I prefer in some movies because you don't have these high expectations. It was only 1996. I'm not seeing that many famous people in there. Nothing.
No,
really.
Not even any, like, they're just all B-listers and C-listers.
As I said, the most notable person was Pinocchio's stunt double, and that was Vern Troyer. And so, like, they did a really good job. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't cheesy. It was very down to earth and very believable. And that was also a good thing.
But you can't go into it having high expectations.
Yeah,
and
you
I think
can't.
that's why a lot of people don't like this movie. I'm not saying that this is going to be something I'm going to waste money on buying.
Yeah.
But...
And you said it's on Netflix, right?
It is on Netflix.
Alright, so, as I said, like, the only reason I ever saw this movie or remembered it was G's first time watching it yesterday when we watched it. And the only reason I remember it all is because, I saw the Chucky movies when I was, like, 6 years old. And then... down the road when I was like 10 or something, back when VHS tapes were still a thing, we wandered around the video store, and I loved going through the horror section, and I saw this Pinocchio's Revenge, and I'm like, I want to see this.
It's the cover, that mouth open wooden doll.
Yeah. And
that just makes you want to see it.
Not to be confused with another horror movie about a wooden mannequin named The Fear. That's have you seen that? Yeah, they made I can never find the sequel, but like anyway, so the goods in this movie, while they were limited, I think they were pretty significant to make it a decent movie, where the acting and the twist. Mm-hmm. Now the twist you could see coming, but it kind of summed things up, and like
it wasn't no M. Night Shyamalan twist where you can't see it coming and then it happens.
Yeah, and also it's not like. Of course, you have to suspend some belief because it's a killer puppet.
Exactly.
But, like, it's nothing... In the realm of the movie, it's nothing outrageous. We're like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
We're like that. And now, like, for the bad... Now, there's one thing that bugged the hell out of G this entire movie, and that was the music.
Because, I swear, the main score of that movie was that, like, for all of you people who've seen Beetlejuice... when Adam was like, the hand guide for the recently deceased, and it's like that was literally playing throughout the whole movie, and it was just terrible. It was cheesy. Mm-hmm. It was so bad, and the love making scene was just.
I enjoyed it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and even the shower scene where it was just like very airy, stupid, cheap porno music.
Yeah, it was.
And music is such a huge factor to a movie.
Like, at least it was fitting music, though. It wasn't, like, absurd music.
Yeah,
but
it fits the B-lister horror film. I gotta give it that, but that's about all I can give it. The music bugged the hell out of me.
And, like, you know, my main gripe with this movie would be the inconsistent movement of the puppet. But then, like, you know, because there's the scenes where he talks and his mouth moves, where his eyes moves, he moves, turns his head, etc. But, of course, this gets played down by the fact, is Pinocchio really alive? Because then it makes sense, because it's just Zoe's imagination or Jennifer's delusions. So I guess if you look at it that way and you're set on the fact that Pinocchio was not alive, then you can safely, like, forgive that. So.
Yeah. One of the things that bugs me, and it's such a small thing, how on earth, divorced single mother, and the same thing with Chucky, Child's Play, why do they have such a large house, and how can they afford to live in nanny?
And she bitched about, like,
she did bitch about
I'm taking less money. She drives a BMW. The nanny has a car. She has another car in the driveway that's covered up. Big house, like.
And the one, like, I don't know, back home in Canada, if you're a defense attorney, you're making more than a public official. Well, like, than someone who is.
Well, she was a public defender.
Okay.
So that's the one you get by default.
It kind of works a little bit differently in Canada. But if you're working anything for the defense, if you're versus the people or whatever, then you're making a hell of a lot more than anybody. But that bugged me.
Oh yeah. So so overall, it was a fairly enjoyable movie. It had its flaws, had its whatever, but, you know, it was a pretty good, enjoyable.
It was not nearly as bad. I think a big reason why I didn't think it was nearly as bad as I was expecting is because you can't have high expectations for a movie
you gotta go in.
You can't read a title that says Pinocchio's Revenge and expect, like, Titanic. Like, it just doesn't work out that way.
Never let go. Well, anyway, we're running out of time. You know, typically for these things, we're going to keep them around 30 minutes. I know it went a little longer.
So we don't talk your ear off, but this was the first one.
Yeah, this is the first one. We figure we go a little crazy with it. It's about 40-something minutes. So, we hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to doing more of these for you. And as I said, we have a thread on Chucky's Playground. Go visit it, where you can submit movie ideas. And for our next one, we decided 1997 horror movie Jack Frost.
And it does not specifically have to be a horror. I mean, if you guys have any other genres or anything that you want us to touch, then yeah, we can get our hands on it. Not a problem.
Like, you know, we're going to be doing some legit ones too, like where we thoroughly enjoyed it and all that. So just keep that in mind and stay tuned, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, see you later.